This is a very unexpected gathering this morning. Sometimes you feel that, as we know, a levaya is a time to give kavod achron, final respects. Sometimes you feel more ready that it's time to give that final tribute. But Al Shor, Avram ben Tzvi Hirsch Bela, was really a young child in a slightly older body. And I don't think any of us expected this day for sure now, for sure with the quickness of how it all happened. And I'm certain that the words, and when speaking to the mishpacha, but there's also this to say and that to say, wasn't enough time to even think about all the things because there's so many. So this will be the beginning of that journey of kavod achron. Just first like to ask, we'll start with the parak of Tehillim, the Rav of some of the members of the family, Rav Spitz from Clanton Park, to say parak of Tehillim.
Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach b'atzas rishoyim u'v'derech hatoim lo amad u'v'moshav leitzim lo yashav ki b'soras Adonai chefzo u'b'soraso yegeh yomam v'layla v'haya ke'et shasul apal gemayim asher piryo yitain bito v'yaleu lo yibol v'chol asher yaseh yatzliach lo chen harishayim kim kamot asher tidefen ruach al kein lo yakumu rishayim b'mishpat v'chatoim b'das tzadikim ki yodei Adonai derech tzadikim v'derech rishayim toved.
I'm going to share my remarks towards the end. I only had a snippet, the tail end story. We'll go in order of those who knew them for their entire lives. First, Byron will share some words on behalf of all of the children, and then two of the grandchildren, I believe Nady and Noam, will share words afterwards as well.
I'm speaking on behalf of my sisters, and I've been told not to be too engineery, whatever that means. My father, Avram ben Tzvi Hirsch Uvela, was born in Toronto on February the 14th, 1930, Tet Zayin Bishvat Tafresh Tzadi. Growing up in Toronto, he would make his way home from school via his grandmother's house, where she would first feed him, and then he would go home to eat dinner number 2. He graduated Harvard Collegiate and went on to the University of Toronto, where he specialized in languages, specifically French, German, and Latin, and he also studied shorthand. He graduated teaching college and found it difficult to find a job, specifically because he was Jewish. In those days, job applications asked for your religion. Finally, a good friend of his, a non-Jewish friend, told him to leave the religion question blank, and soon enough, our father had his first teaching position in Sudbury, Ontario. After a few weeks of teaching, our father asked his principal for days off for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The principal was shocked. He did give our father the days off without pay, and not only that, the principal actually called the rabbi of the shul to make sure our father was in attendance. In those days, inspectors would sit in classes and evaluate the teachers. After our father's evaluation, the principal, who was looking for ways to get rid of our father, came to him and said, quote, "You're a genius," as his teaching methods got top marks. After marrying our mother, our father went to teach in London, Ontario, and eventually, with the expanding Ontario population into Mississauga, our father went to teach in a new school, Gordon Graydon Junior High, and after a few years, they opened up the Applewood Heights Secondary School as a feeder school, Applewood called because it was in the middle of many apple orchards. Our father became the head of the moderns department, and that's the teaching of languages. He worked with a great team of teachers that we all got to know, as over time they attended many of our family events, including my bar mitzvah, which was a highlight in their lives as well as mine. Before the beginning of a school year, I remember going with my father to help him open up books and open up boxes and label books for the upcoming school year. Afterwards, we would go out for ice cream. My father was very well respected and admired by his staff and peers. He ran the moderns department at Applewood until it was his retirement from the public school system in 1988, after 37 years of teaching. Afterwards, he went to teach at Chat for an additional 10 years, and of course, that was a shock to him, as many of us who attended Chat probably know what I mean. Daddy would let us mark his exams, that is, the multiple choice questions of the exams, when we were very young. Interestingly, he never reused old exams. I remember him sitting on his chair and writing a new test or exam from scratch every time, never copying previous tests. Our father used to share with us some student stories. My favorite was always been the student troublemaker who brought handcuffs into the class and handcuffed himself to the desk. Simple solution, my father simply took away the keys. With 5 young children, our father worked multiple jobs as well. He taught in the public school system, he marked correspondence courses, he proctored exams for those courses, and he even taught in the evenings at the new, at that time, Ner Yisrael Yeshiva. In later years, and even very recently, former students would come up to him and say hi and ask how he's doing. When they would see me, they would ask me how my father's doing and tell me he was a great teacher, and then tell me if they were a good student or not. Daddy would also teach summer school in the summer. And then we would go camping for the rest of the summer. We camped all the way south to Florida, up the East Coast, west to the Rockies, up to Calgary and Banff, and across the Prairie provinces, where you really experience what a plain is. Daddy supported us and guided us growing up, whether it was going to the library or helping us with our homework. In French and Latin, he taught us many tricks of the trade that he himself created, such as a simple masculine and feminine French words. Always list the masculine on the right, the feminine on the left, so if you can't remember the word's gender, just try to remember what side of the sheet it was on. He also taught us some essential Latin phrases such as semper ubi sub ubi. So few people remember Latin. Daddy also enjoyed helping and teaching his grandchildren many, many years later. He always took an interest in what we did. He tried to understand what I do as an engineer, but settled for, it sounds interesting, even though I don't really get it. Daddy had a special relationship with all of his grandchildren as well. Always interested in what they did, what they had to say, happy to see them. The visits always brought up the perennial smile to his face. When Noam was born, and he had multiple surgeries after he was born, Daddy had told Sari and Bruce to go home and rest, and he would stay with the baby. He stayed with Noam and sang to him in the hospital. The nurses told Sari afterwards that they had never seen a grandfather hold a child like that. Daddy also had a special relationship with Menachem Alav Shalom, special needs grandchild. He knew his Zeta, And the smile on both their faces, when Malcolm saw me, just lit up. It was just very telling. Daddy took interest in and was proud of all 5 of us children, the 22 grandchildren, and over 40 great-grandchildren, one of which Mimi and I had the opportunity to be at the bris in Israel on Wednesday, and another grandson was just born this morning. My father's memory was pretty good, remembering the names of his grandchildren. But once in a while, he would nudge me and say, what's that one's name again? As if I would know. Daddy didn't have the type of Jewish education that he had provided to us, but for many years, he was one of the Asara Batlanim at the shul every morning with a smile on his face until his health started to decline and walking to shul was a challenge. Over time, when he lived in the neighborhood, he would join us on Friday nights at Or Chaim for Galabat Shabbat, enjoying his grandchildren growing up, and me, of course. He would also join us for Rosh Hashanah davening as well at Or Chaim. He was easy to talk to and so supportive when we would come over, always insisting that we sit down, have something to eat, take something, ask us what's happening. Our parents were a team, having each other's back, full of life and energy, going out together to eat with friends, family, going to plays. They just saw on Tuesday night the play 42nd Street. We've been trying to get them to go to the matinee, the Wednesday matinee, but they say that's for old people. After almost 66 years, they had a packed social life. My daughter said when she would go to Marky's with her friends, there was Bubby and Zeta with their friends. I did speak to my father from Israel earlier in the week when he was really looking forward to going to 42nd Street. When I asked how he was doing, he was okay. He'd never complained with all the appointments he had and the issues. He had a few medical issues over